Welcome back, everyone. I
Hello.
hope everyone's having a great week. We are back here with our seventh episode now. If you are new, my name is Aaron, and this is my co-host and lovely wife, Asia. This is episode 7. We're going to be doing a different episode this week, something we haven't done before. We've been sort of leading up to this for the last probably, I don't know, 3 weeks or a month, I would say.
Yes.
And we're going to do a Q&A episode. So we've been collecting questions. If you submitted a question for us, thank you for doing that. We've picked some of them to answer today in this podcast. So we're gonna do that this week. And hopefully you enjoy it, and hopefully we can do it again down the road. I know that we're both looking forward to it. So why don't we get started? So, question number 1. I'll let you answer this one first.
Okay, one sec. Okay, ask away.
Okay. What do you miss most in Canada that you don't have access to? So presumably that we're still on the road. We're in Gold Coast, Australia. So what do you miss most in Canada that you don't have access to while we're out on the road traveling around?
Yeah. So just even to add a little bit of context too to someone who might be listening to this for the first time, we've actually been gone from Canada for months now. So we've been on the road for a little while. So what do I miss most? I mean, other than like the cliche things like my family, I think those are pretty obvious. Um, what I miss most, I think, actually has to do with just not even necessarily Canada, but just our regular routines. Like I'm kind of starting to get to the point now where I miss having a routine. Like on Monday we do this, and on Tuesday we do that, and Wednesday we go here, and like having a set schedule for our life and just something that's kind of predictable. Which it's funny because when you are back home, you start to go sometimes like, oh, I need a vacation, or I want to get out of here, I want to switch things up or whatever. But I think being on the road for the last 6 months has really taught me that like having some of that predictability every now and then is kind of nice. So when we do eventually get back home, like I'm looking forward to having a little bit of that. And that's part of what I miss about home is it's just like it's your place that you are all the time. And it's just you have a little bit of routine and stuff there. So I think that's probably mine. I don't know what's yours.
I would say mine's similar. Like
Oh yeah?
I miss the routine in some ways, like you said. But I think the thing I miss the most is just having a place that's ours. This is where we
Yeah.
live,
Yeah.
and I don't mean that in like a geographical sense. I mean that in a literal sense of like this is the home that we live, and it has our things in it and whatever. Like, I mean, I'm assuming most people haven't been away for not 5 months, like or almost 6 months.
Yeah.
Most people, I'm assuming that they haven't done that. So like we're every month we're in a different home,
Mhm.
totally different. There's different things in the kitchen. There's different, the beds are different. Like and none of it's yours, right? So like
Yeah.
for me, having my own bed or having the things that, in our kitchen that we have to cook with or
Mhm.
whatever it is, our own vehicles, like just a
Yeah.
place that's our stuff, the things that we use, we like. I miss that about Canada.
Yeah.
There are elements of it that I like. It kind of gets you out of a comfort zone, but I do like having a place that's ours, and there's no time we have to leave. We don't have to leave in 6 days and then figure out a new place or and then in that
Yeah.
stuff. So
And like
that would
living
be
out cases, like kind of like packing and unpacking yourself, but then like not fully unpacking because in a month you're going somewhere else. Like it's just to be able to kind of settle in again. You're like, oh, okay.
I don't mind the like packing, unpacking. I mean, I'm fairly minimalistic with that stuff anyways, and
Yeah, true.
I've done it a lot in my life, so it's not like I don't get too bothered by that. I just like to have the things in my house, that
That are
that you
more.
want to use. Like, I mean,
Mhm.
making coffee here has been a chore, like just because they don't have the stuff to make like decent
Yeah.
coffee, and so
Yeah.
it's you know just those little
Yeah.
things. But a
I
place,
agree.
my
Even
answer
to,
would be a place to call, a place that's our own house that we live, and that's where
yeah.
we come back to at the end of the day, and we don't have to leave at any time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's my answer. Question 2.
Okay.
This one gets a little deeper.
Okay.
What are the top, what are the 1 to 3 top important lessons you want to teach your kids? So why don't you start with one, and then I'll go my one, and then we'll go back and forth.
Okay. So I would say that one of the things that I want to teach my kids is that what we have at home is actually such a luxury compared to what most people have or live with in the world around us. I think like being from Canada is such a privilege, but you don't know that when you only see and live in Canada. And especially, I don't know, just like the world we live in today, where so much of it is like keeping up with the Joneses and like wanting to have the nicest this and, more materialistic. When you get to go and see different parts of the world, you get to see how more cultures, more people live. I mean, even, we spent a month in Thailand, and to go around and see like the way that people work and the types of houses that they live in. And there's, we spent time in Bangkok, and there's like 11 million people that live just in that city of Bangkok. It's like, there is so many more people. That's a third of the amount of people that are in Canada is in that one city in Thailand, right? So it's like the way that they live and the things that they have access to and the resources, it is nothing like what we have in Canada, the privilege that we have in Canada. And I think one of the things that I really want to teach our kids, and it's not necessarily of like, be grateful for what you have because, most people don't live this way. It's not about telling them, it's about showing them through experiences and being like, we do have resources. We do have things that help us and make us privileged. We have opportunity in our country that in other countries they just don't have. Being grateful for that and then going like, okay, how can we be aware of this to then do good in other places? And I think like, yes, seeing other parts of the world can bring that to light for you and for your kids, but it's seeing that in other parts of the world and then also realizing like things like that also exist where you are in Canada and not to overlook it. Like we have resources and things available. So like, how do we do good with the things that we have? And just making our kids aware of the different types of circumstances, living situations, family life, the different types of ways that people work, like that it's not that I'm just like all high and mighty because I have these things. It's like, okay, maybe we have more access than other people. So how can we now take that and do good with it? I think that's just like a principle that I really want to instill in our kids.
I it's not one of my points that I had, but I agree with you. And I've actually thought of it a little bit differently than that. I've always thought of it from the perspective that if you go and see what's around the world and the way lots of people live, you'll come home and appreciate the opportunities that you have there because you have way more opportunities than 99% of people on the planet just because you were born in Canada. So I think about it more from that perspective of like, hey, I know you don't appreciate what you have here because you haven't seen anything else. Let's go see some other things. And then when you come back, you hopefully you go, oh, wow, like I should work hard to, capitalize on some of these opportunities because a lot of people don't have these opportunities that I have. So I've kind of thought about it from that perspective. And I'm speaking largely from my own personal experience. Like I didn't travel anywhere until I was an adult.
Right.
And then once I did, I thought, wow, like there is a lot of opportunity where I'm from. But okay, so that my first one was this is a really big one. I know for both of us is we really want our kids to do things despite being fearful of them.
Yes.
So whether that's I'm scared to say something because it might backfire on me or hurt someone's feelings if I be honest with them, whether it's should I do a front flip off a sand dune at the beach? I'm really scared to do it. We always try to encourage them that if it's scary for you, you should still do it. You should figure out a way to do it, even though you feel scared. And I think, as a little kid, it's not such an important, I want to say not such an important, my point is that it becomes much more important the later you get in life
Older.
to,
Yeah.
to be able to, do things despite being fearful, whatever the fear is, being judged, whatever, getting hurt physically, whatever it might be, challenging yourself. I'm scared, acknowledging it. And we try to do that with our oldest son every day. Baker, we encourage him to do stuff every day. And, now he actually responds with like, yeah, mom or dad, I know I was scared to do a 360 or whatever it was off of a platform, but I did it anyways. And so he actually says that now. So that is something both of us, we really try hard to do, is just encourage them. We know they're scared. We encourage them anyways. All right.
I
Number
actually
two.
okay, one sec. I want to say one thing to that as well, that being a parent has also taught me that I should not project my own fears onto them. This kind of goes with that, where it's like, I also encourage them to be like, I understand that this is fearful, but for me, I am much more, and we talked about this in an earlier podcast too, of like being cautious versus being more of a risk taker. And I'm definitely more of like a cautious parent too. And so I like, when my kid has the potential to get hurt, my initial instinct is like, don't do that. You could get hurt. So I have had to be very conscious as well of not saying those things and encouraging them and being like, hey, just because I have this fear, like my kid doesn't have this fear yet. Fear is totally learned, right? Through maybe he does something, he makes a mistake, he falls, he whatever. So it's a learned thing. But if I project my fear onto him, then he's going to feel that and he's going to adapt that fear. And so that's something even for me too, like when it comes to that, is holding my own self back as well and being like, do not project this onto him. Some of the things that our kids have done over the last, 5 years have definitely been not encouraged by me. Like they have been fully Aaron led, but me going, hey, if he is going to take this on, if Aaron's going to take this on and think like, okay, this is good for our kids to do, I am going to just try and take a chill pill here and relax and let him do his thing. And it literally has worked out every single time. So all of you moms who get that like anxiety, that fear, know that that's also normal, but like we don't need to project that onto our kids. So that's been a big learning lesson for me too, that I feel like I don't want to toot my own horn, but I feel like I do a pretty good job at that because
Yeah, you do. But it's
like,
also like what you're saying, it's also something you've learned. You've learned to be scared to jump off of this, or be scared to, like, you've learned that. The same way I have learned to not be scared about those things. And we both pass those on to our kids.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. So I have had to really have conversations with my own self as well when it comes to this topic, for sure.
Okay. What's your second one? So again, question is, what are the 1 to 3 top important lessons you want to teach your kids? What's your number 2?
My number 2 probably has to do with health. Am I stealing yours? We didn't really talk about these, so I don't want to overtake you.
I asked you a question. You need to answer the question. Don't ask me what mine are. Just answer yours.
Okay. So mine probably has to do with health and around health, and teaching our children about the benefit of being healthy that have nothing to do with like the way that you physically look. It has, and enjoying the process of it, like understanding like going for a hike is healthy, swimming in the pool is healthy, learning the difference between like healthy foods and not so healthy foods, but not from a standpoint of like you can never have the unhealthy foods. Listening, like teaching them how to listen to their bodies. This is something that we've done with our oldest, and he's pretty in tune with his body of like, I eat something, it makes me feel like this, maybe I don't, like almost sometimes to the point where it's like, dude, that was a month ago that you ate that, like we can maybe try it again, like, it's like, but he just educating around health and different types of foods and how we move our bodies, and even just like including them in certain things. Like we've been doing at home, or Aaron mostly has been doing like at home workouts, and then Baker will want to join with him, and having it be like a motivating and exciting thing and not this like chore. I think that's one thing for us. And as our kids get older and they get into sports and things like that, I think it might just become more inherent as well, because they're going to be motivated to perform better or whatever it is at what they're doing. But for right now, just like that education piece around food and nutrition and moving our bodies and listening to our bodies and kind of, yeah, I think that's something that's a principle, something that I really want to pass on to them. And it also too, like, helps me focus on that for myself, because I go like, okay, these are things that I'm teaching to my children. Like, I also want to exemplify the type of person that takes care of herself and eats healthy foods and, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I agree with that as a principle. Obviously, it's not one of the ones I'd written down or thought about, but clearly it's something we care about. I mean, we both go to the gym regularly. We eat very healthy foods. We do all kinds of activities to stay active. So it's obviously something we both, really care about to pass on to our kids. But I think a lot of it will just be passed on, just them behavior-wise, watching, the things that we do. So
Yeah.
my second one is I really want to try to pass down to our kids being able to think for themselves.
It's a good one.
Not just take whatever people say or do and, ingrain that into their head as that's the way it is. I want them to be able to come up, with their own thesis on the way it should be or the way it is, or I want them to question stuff and I want them to think about things and I want them to talk to different people to come up with, all these people may have different perspectives, but I want them to speak to a bunch of people and come up with their own truth on whatever it is that they're learning about. And that includes me, like, and you, if we tell them something, maybe that was the best way for me, or maybe it was the best way for you, but you should question, as to whether it's the best way for you as our kid going forward. And maybe it's not, but you should think about it and you should come up with your own thinking around it. So I want them to think critically about everything. Just think critically, question it and figure out if it's right for you or not right for you, or the truth, or there's some parts of it that are true or whatever it is. So I really want them to be able to think for themselves, especially as they get older and start running in packs of 5 of friends and, being, doing things that maybe aren't great. You want them to be able to think for themselves in those scenarios. And hopefully when they're a teenager, they've sort of built that up to the place where they can make their own decision on whatever it is, whatever it might be. But so I want them to be able to think for themselves. It's something I'm going to try hard to pass down to them. And I think we're just getting into that stage with Baker. He's 5.5. So we're just sort of entering that stage. I tell him some things every once in a while now, like him and Luca will be doing something and Luca will grab something that they know they're not supposed to play with or whatever it might be. Yeah. The next thing you know, Baker's got it. He knows full well he should not be playing with it or doing whatever he's doing.
Yeah.
And I'll say, what are you doing, Baker? Like, why are you playing with this? And he'll go, well, Luca grabbed it. And so I tell him now, well, you're 5.5. He's 3. You shouldn't be playing with it. And you should make your own decision. Just because Luca did it doesn't not mean you should just follow him and do it too. Yeah. So it's just little ways like that right now, but that will become a more important one as basically from now until ever for Baker.
Yeah.
So that's my second one. What do you got for number 3?
I actually only came up with 2. Is that bad?
No, I have 3, so I can answer that again if you want.
Yeah.
Okay.
Answer one.
My third one was I would really like to inspire them as they grow to build meaningful relationships with other people. I feel
so good at this.
I feel like at times in my life, I haven't necessarily valued that as much as I don't want to say as I should, because I think you're very different as you go through life, different periods, certain things matter to you a lot at one age and they don't matter to you at another age. But as I keep getting older, I notice that I value more, like really quality relationships that I have. And I'm not saying they need to have 1,000 of them, but to have 5 or 10 of them that are really, important or that they value a lot, I think is something that would serve them very well in life. So I want to, and I know they have meaningful relationships now that they really care about, but, as they grow older, they'll change. And but just to keep building like a meaningful relationship. Don't hang around people if it's not necessarily meaningful, or if what you're doing isn't meaningful. Like go and build like a meaningful relationship with other people. And I would say right now their meaningful relationships are like, us,
Us
their
and their grandparents.
grandparents,
Yeah.
it's between each other, Baker and Luca,
Yeah.
building. That's one of the ones I want to foster the absolute most is
Yeah.
a meaningful relationship between the two of them, so that when they're 30 years old or 50 years old, they're, amazing friends and love being around each other and support each other and hang out with each other. Like, I think that would be great. So that was my third one, is build meaningful relationships with people.
Okay. That's so good.
All right.
You're so good at answers. I need to get that.
I'm a thoughtful person.
I know you are.
Okay, the third question. What's one place on earth you would travel to and why? And somewhere you haven't already been. So,
Where I haven't been. Okay. Well, what initially comes up for me is Greece. Greece is massively on a bucket list for me. And a big reason why actually is because my mom, like, it's funny. My mom told me this story once, and maybe it was a dream, maybe I'm hallucinating, maybe it's a real story, that her and her friends were going to go to Greece at one point when they were younger, and they never ended up going, and she's like regretted it ever since. And so a part of me has just always wanted to go there myself. And because it looks like an absolutely stunning country, it's got tons of history. I love the idea of like island hopping around. I just think it would be very much like my vibe of a trip. Um, but I don't really have like, other than that, like meaningful kind of like my mom always wanted to go, I'd love to go. I mean, honestly, like a bucket list, would love to go with her. I feel like would be like that adds on to it as well. Kind of gets that emotional connection. Like would love to go with her because she never did it, and I would love to be the person that gets to go along with her when she goes. But Greece is definitely one of the places that comes up for me. And I think it's just because of that story that she told me, and also like I've seen a bunch of people who have gone and they've always explained like their cool experiences. And so I don't really have, I mean, I could list probably 50 places, honestly, like the south of France. I want to go to Portugal. I want to, like, there's so many places that I want to go, but that's one that sticks out for me of like, if I could go on a bucket list trip tomorrow, I think it would be to Greece.
well, maybe we can make that happen. Um,
Okay, what's
yeah, I think my place is pretty easy for me. My place that I would go to, it's not somewhere I'll definitely go, but I haven't been yet, is the Philippines.
Oh, I
And
thought you were going to say South Africa.
no, it's
Okay.
by far and away the Philippines. And there's two reasons, but there's one really important reason for me. My grandma was born in the Philippines, and so that's reason one. Reason two is it's just very nice, and there's lots of amazing beaches and waters and animals, sea life. So there's that side of things, but the primary reason is that my grandma was born there, and one of the few ways that I kind of got some perspective on the world, and this is obviously through her eyes, was I had not been anywhere at this point. This was, I don't know, 15 years ago when I first would start to talk to her about the Philippines. And I knew she was from there, but it didn't mean a lot to me growing, like when I was really young, until I was maybe a teenager and I sort of understood it more. But she was there. She was born there. Her family's from there, and they had to leave when she was 7. I don't know. This must have been like 1950 or something like this. So she was there, born there, and had to leave because of a war. So she would tell me, her family would literally go up into the hills where they were from. They lived in this little beach town, and they would move into the hills because there was Japanese soldiers coming on the land. And, this is, I mean, I would never think I would experience something like this, especially as a 15-year-old kid. So she was from there, and they left. And she would tell me stories about it. And so the main reason that I would like to go there is just to see where she came from. And,
Mm-hmm.
I'm a quarter Filipino, believe it or not. So I
Yeah.
would like to see, I would just like to see, the culture there and where she's from. I'd like to go to her hometown and check it out. And she passed away a year ago or something now. Like, no,
Yeah. Almost a
yeah,
year now.
a year and a half ago. So I can't ask her any more questions about it, but I'd like to go there, and I would also like to take my mom there at some point, um, just to go and see it and experience it, and yeah, see where she's from and her heritage is from, and I guess part of my heritage is from. So
Yeah.
that would be the place. There's a lot of places that I want to go, but there's no reasons, larger than that for me to say those places here. So
Yeah.
that would be my place, the Philippines. She's from the island of Bohol. And another thing I would say about it actually is this was the first place I got this idea of I have some more opportunity than other people might when she would tell me these stories. And she would even tell me about her family that still lives there and what kind
Mm.
of goes on there. And um, first started to realize that, like, sounds like I have a lot of opportunity. And so one of the things that I've gathered from my grandma is that, and her talking to her and her sharing with me about the Philippines, is that I should work hard. Like, I have opportunities other people don't. I could waste them and it's just a total waste of an opportunity, or I could work hard on them and, seize some of those. And yeah, those are opportunities that a lot of people don't have. So
Yeah.
that was kind of that and my first time traveling around. My first time traveling outside of North America was to Europe, which is not the same.
Yeah.
But that's where that concept sort of originated, was just talking to her and sort of realizing, I got something a lot of people don't have here. So I should work
Yeah.
hard and take advantage of some of those.
Yeah.
Number 4, what is one thing having kids has taught you?
Oh, I mean, to narrow it down to one thing seems
I have 2. So,
seems
you want to,
criminal.
if you want
Okay.
to,
Okay. Well, the first one that comes to mind, and actually, like, without even knowing this question, Aaron and I were talking about this the other day. One thing having kids has taught me is that sometimes you will have a kid that doesn't matter how you parent them, they will respond or react in ways you've never shown them how to do. And I think it's taught me to have a lot more sympathy for other parents when they have children who act out a certain way. We have a lovely 3-year-old who is a screamer. And we are not screamers. Like, you know how they're like, oh, they learned that. That's a learned behavior. They must have screaming parents at home. Like, I am telling you, that's not the case. But if you make Luca angry, he will scream bloody murder. Like, somebody is dying. And it doesn't matter where you are.
okay. Okay. So just real quick, we were at the park this evening, and Luca has
It happens
developed
tonight.
he has developed an issue, I'll call it, where he walks around to random people wherever we are and just starts asking them if they have food or snacks. Or so tonight he
Toy.
walked up to a random
Mostly
guy
food.
and
Yeah.
asked what was in the guy's pocket. Next thing you know, this full grown adult is emptying out his pocket, showing Luca what's in his pocket.
Like
And then
keys and stuff. Like,
maybe
does not care.
15 minutes later, he comes over and there's a family eating popsicles or ice cream, whatever, beside us.
Yeah.
There's a lot of kids there. There was 10 kids in this family. So
Yeah.
anyways, he walks over, and again, this is a problem. So we try to, stop him from doing this at any chance we can get. And so we shut it down. He started asking, he goes, hey, and then just leans into, do you have snacks, or can I have that, or can I have this? What's
Yeah.
that? And we were like, hey, Luca, no, don't do that. We're not asking people for food. And so he walked back over, looked us both in the face,
Like,
no response
just-
other than a double fist and squeal as loud as he can for probably 4 seconds
And like
in the
face
middle
goes
of a big
beet
park.
red. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Like you
that's
think
just
we
an
just
example.
stole him or something.
That's just
So
an example of the way Luca is right now. But anyways, I'll let you carry on with your
but
point.
what having him has taught me is like you literally cannot judge other parents because it does not matter the type of gentle parenting technique, the frustrated parenting technique. It doesn't matter what you do with him. That is how he reacts. And it was not a learned behavior. Like it was absolutely not like, I mean, it just wasn't. We don't do that. So I think it's just taught me a lot about you just never know what's going on behind closed doors and that every kid has different temperament, even though they are parented by the same parents and parented very similarly. I mean, you do have to adjust your parenting a little bit per kid because some things are going to work for one and not work for the other. But like it has truly shown me to have empathy and sympathy for other people and what they are going through, because I think when you don't have kids, it's so easy to be judgmental of what's going on. Like, whoa, that kid has a temper, or whoa, that kid is blah, blah, blah. And it's so easy to just be like, if I was a parent, I would never let my kid get away with that. Or it's, it's so easy to have those thoughts. And then you're in it and you're like, I don't know what to do about this. Like, I don't know what brings us on or like how this came about. I don't know how this is a habit or something that happens all the time. Like, I just don't get it. And so it's taught me to just, you never know what is going on. Every kid is different. Have sympathy and empathy for other parents when they're going through it, because like there's literally nothing that we can do. Like that is his first response. And like, we can be there to support him and help walk him through it. But like, that is his first response every single time.
Yeah.
He's like a freaking ticking time bomb and you never know when it's going to go off. And it goes off in the least appealing places ever.
It hasn't gone off in a plane yet. So
no, thank goodness. But it does go off in the grocery store, at the park.
Elevators.
Like, doesn't matter. Elevators. It's like, it's, you just don't know. You just don't know. So that's one.
Okay. My first one that having kids taught me was like almost instantaneously when we brought Baker home. There's just a sense of like, this is not about me anymore. Like it's
instantly.
I think part of the reason it feels that way is just you have a newborn child who literally cannot do anything for themselves. And if you don't do everything for them, that child would not survive. And so like, I don't know if it's just instinctual or what, but I used to care a lot more about my own needs. Like, and I still care about them, but it's when it's put between my needs or a child's needs, it's not really a discussion, right? That's what I'm saying. It just is not about you anymore. It doesn't feel about you. It feels very much like you're there to help and develop and serve these kids. And so it's changed my thinking a lot on that. It's not about largely what I want anymore. It's about two little kids who need, a dad to show them the way through the world the best that they can. So that's one of the major things that I have learned, I guess, passively learned. It's not like somebody told me or anything. It's just something you experience and you go, wow, yeah, maybe that's not so much about me anymore.
Yeah, it's not at all.
What's your second?
My second one, it kind of feeds off of that. Like, it's not about me, but also take any expectation you had about being a parent and throw it out the freaking door. It's gone. I think that in the early days of being a parent, and I can speak to this as like even a first time parent, you have all these expectations of how things are going to go, how you're going to do it. And it's okay to allow yourself to say F that. And I'm going to do it in the way that works best for me. And so much of it is trial and error. I mean, there is a million things I could say. Before I ever had kids, I was like, absolutely no to co-sleeping. What do you think we did in order to survive? We freaking co-slept in the same bed every day for months. We still sleep in the same bed with our kids almost every day. They end up in here. And it's because at that point, it's like, it's about survival and getting sleep and doing the things that are best for you. And so I think like, I mean, I could, like I said, I could have a million examples of this, but I think it's like, yes, okay, there's suggestions out there, but don't let society pressure you into doing what is good or bad or right or wrong or whatever. It's like you need to go with your gut on things and listen to that and drown out the naysayers. If you have people who you respect and you're wanting and you're open to listening to their opinion, like do that, but also take it with a grain of salt. People are different than you. They have different types of kids. They may have parented 30 years ago. Like if you're asking your parents for advice, like this was something that I even learned as well, where it was like, okay, you did that 30 years ago because this is the information that you were being fed, but this is the information that I'm being fed. And so being able to take both and make your own decision with it, kind of that critical thinking piece that Erin wants to teach our kids. Like I think so much of that comes down to parenting and instinct as well. And just like knowing that you don't need to have everything figured out. Like you are allowed to do whatever the heck is best for you, and you don't need to listen to a single person. And I think like, I had a background in nursing. I mean, I still do, but like when Baker was born, I was very rigid in my thinking because I was like, but they have to sleep on their back and they're not allowed to sleep with any stuffed animals and they can't do this and they can't be in your bed with you because that's unsafe. And there were so many things that I was so paranoid about. And then it kind of was like, okay, but you're also miserable. You're not sleeping. No one's sleeping. Like there were so many negatives to that way that I was like, okay, are you open to trying something different? Or are you going to be so rigid in this? So I think just like allowing yourself to move fluidly through parenthood and not having this rigidity or schedule or whatever, it opened up a lot of more happiness for me in my life.
It's interesting. It's interesting listening to you talk about it because I've known that that's the way it's been for you. But when you were talking about it, I was just reflecting on my own like experience, and my experience is very different than yours because I didn't really have any expectations. Like I never really was like, I mean, we never went to one thing about, I don't even know what it's called. You go to have a course or something when you have a kid, you don't have a kid, you listen to somebody tell you how to have it. Like,
we didn't know prenatal classes.
I was never interested in any of it. I didn't want to go to any of it. I don't care about any of that. I never really had like an expectation of
and I also feel like too,
and
even so, I want to defend you on this though, because coming from nursing, having seen babies being born, understanding the medical side of it, I didn't feel like I needed to go. And I was just like, well, I feel comfortable in the hospital. I feel comfortable delivering a baby. I feel comfortable with all of that that's around me. So if you were like, I don't really like care to know, like, you were just like, I'm going to be going with the flow with this whole thing. So we never did any of that.
Yeah. I don't know. I just never thought, this is the way I expect anything to go. I never thought of that at all. I just thought, well, whatever happens, I'm just going to do it the way I want to do it. And that's the way we're going to go. And so,
but that's how you live.
And so I didn't really like ever have these crazy moments where I thought it was going to go some way and it's not going that way. And I have to completely abandon that way of thinking. Like I never thought ever of that. Yeah. The only time I can remember of having like a massive expectation, I can think of two, but I'll leave the second one for a minute. The first one was just thinking that like kids would, or that when Baker came home, the first night, I had this delusional thinking that, it was like 10 o'clock at night and, I'd just been fed. It's great. We're all happy laying in bed. He goes in a crib at the end of our bed and we're all going to go to sleep till 7, 6 in the morning, whatever it is. And we'll wake up and we'll all just be jolly. And about an hour later, he's squealing to the moon.
Yeah.
And that was...
We were like, what do we do?
That was a massive shock to me, just because I not one time thought that that's what's going to happen. I did not think that one time. And that was a massive, massive, massive shock to my system. So,
Yeah.
but it's just such a small thing. It's not like,
Yeah.
oh, this is the way it's going to be for 5 years. And if it's not that way, I'm going to have a hard time, or my expectations, this, that. So I never thought that way. My second one was, it's taught me a lot of patience. I have patience for some things over a longer term. Other things I have like very little patience for. If I think that they can be done fast, I have very little patience for that.
Which is not what having kids is about.
Yeah. And with kids, one of the areas that it's sort of tested me is like, it takes them a long time to figure a lot of stuff out. You know, like you could ask them 58 times in a week not to do something or to do something. And it's like the 60th time, they're like, you know, get half an inkling of what to do. And it's just the way it is. Like, it doesn't matter. You know, you're going to tell them 1,000 times to do stuff. And eventually one day they're going to figure it out. And you have no control over when that day is. Yeah. So there's a lot of, I mean, they learn a lot of stuff really fast, but hey, can you put your shoes on? Or, hey, can you clean up the toys? Or, you know, like, just, there's a lot of things in everyday life that you ask them numerous times a day. Can you eat over your plate? There's 1,000 crumbs on the ground and I'm going to clean those up, or you're going to clean them up. Can you eat over the plate? Like, it's a really simple thing. I would have thought you could learn that pretty quickly, but it might be a 2-year process. So in that way, it's taught me, and I'm still having to figure this out. Just, it requires a bit more patience than I've been used to in my life, with just accepting a time frame on something so little like this, that you would think, you know, when you don't have kids, anyone you ask to eat over their plate will respond to that in 1 second and go, oh, sorry, you know, like, I'll eat off my plate from now on. A kid is like 185 times over the course of a year and a half, and they're still not going to do it. So that's a big one for me, is just having to say things over and over and over and over again. And at some point they'll get it. No idea when that point is. So just being very patient, and I'm not very patient, but being more patient. So I think I'm doing better on it, but I know that I can still do better on it. And I try.
All can. Yeah.
Okay, that's question 4. Question 5. If you could go back to being in your early/mid-20s and tell that person 2 things, what would those 2 things be? So you go, why don't you start?
The first one for me would be that almost no decision that you make is permanent, other than getting a tattoo and I guess choosing to have children. But like career moves, where you go to school, what you choose to do in school, where you live, where you're, the city you have your house in, like almost no decision you make has to be permanent in your life if you are not happy with that decision. Like, I think when I was in my early 20s, it was like, I got to figure my life out. Like, I need to go to school. I need to get a career. I need to do that thing. I'm going to be settled down in this place and I'm going to do that. And that's what I'm going to do. And you just don't have to. Like you don't have to approach any decision with that sort of, it can be like, you know what? I feel like going and doing this, and it would be a great thing for like the next couple of years so I can like get my foot in the door, and then maybe this path I'm going to go down after that. And then maybe you do something for a few years and you're like, I'm really more leaning towards this now instead of that. Like, I think just, again, like not having that rigidity in what you do and the decisions that you're making, and just being aware that like your life is going to change, your priorities are going to change. So much in your 20s is going to happen, and literally nothing has to be a permanent decision. You don't like the house you live in? Sell it and move. You want to go to a different country? Try it out. You want to, like, you can figure things out, but you don't have to be And your life does not have to be figured out by the time you're in your 20s. It just
Yeah.
doesn't. And I think I'm still like, I'm only in my early 30s, but I'm still figuring out my life. Like, and it's fun. There's a fun part to that to me, like to not necessarily know where I'm going to be in 5 years. Like, I'm cool with that.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that one. And I do agree with you that it seems like when you're 20, you know,
You
you
need
gotta
it all. You have it
you need
all
to have the
planned.
answer to all these
Yeah.
things, and it just couldn't be more like further from the truth.
Agreed.
I don't think that's, yeah, I just think it's not, that period of your life is not about having things figured it out.
No.
Nor
No.
should you, nor do I think you should actually assess your life on how much you have figured out. I think I looking back for me on this
Yeah.
point, I wished I would have assessed myself on the opposite of that. What do I not have figured out? And sort of, you know, went into those things and learned about those things. And because I think that would have been a more valuable measure of where I'm going, not necessarily where I'm at.
Yeah.
My first one, this would have been tougher at the time, I remember, but like just betting on myself, betting on myself that I could do whatever it is I wanted to do. It took some time from being in, you know, I always believed that I could do certain things, but I didn't quite have like the stretch beliefs that I could do something that maybe people around me weren't doing,
Right.
or something that I had dreamed of for a long time that I, you know, maybe I just didn't bet on myself enough. Whereas, you
Yeah.
know, today where I sit, yeah, I'm willing to bet almost everything that I have on myself now. So I wish I would have had, back then, I would have told myself, like, you know, you can do more than you think you can do. It requires a couple of things, such as like a longer time frame thinking. You can't accomplish very much in 360 days, if that's what 365 days, if that's what you're thinking.
Yeah.
And as a 22-year-old or 5-year-old or whatever you might be, that's probably more along the lines of your thinking in that time frame. But over a longer time frame, you can accomplish a lot, especially if you know, really lean into it and bet on yourself that you can accomplish it. So I wish, going back, I shouldn't say I wish, if I were sitting here now talking to 23 or 4 or 5-year-old Aaron, I would say that to him, or even 20-year-old Aaron. You know, if you have something you want to pursue, you should pursue it. Like, and you should pursue it 110%, not 85. You should do it to the absolute maximum.
Right.
That would be my first one. Is just, you know, take the bets on myself. You're going to place bets in life no matter what you do. So you might as well, you know, in my opinion, you might as well bet it on somebody you have control over.
Yeah. Yeah. So good.
What's
Okay.
your second one?
My second one is a little bit cliche, but I think for me, it really has made an impact. But nobody is thinking about you more than you are thinking about you. So you need to do what is best for you and not anybody else. And I think that a lot of this comes down to, I mean, for me in particular, like, I think some of it has to do with just like the expectations of that other people might have of you to be a certain way. Whether it's to be successful or to be good at something or to follow a certain path. Sometimes, you know, you pursue the dreams of others versus your own. And I think too, like, at the time, I wouldn't have necessarily known this, right? Like, I think that the path I went down, the things that I did I thought they were for me as well, right? Because it was what I was ingrained to do. And it wasn't until like I started something different that I really kind of went like, oh, I'm really afraid of what other people might think of me, how they might respond. What are they going to say? Am I going to be made fun of? Am I like, you know, it's all these thoughts in your head. And truly no one is thinking about you more than you are thinking about you. So you may as well do whatever the heck it is that makes you happy, brings you peace,
Yeah.
makes you money in the way that you want to, like whatever that is. because there's nobody out there that is watching you and criticizing you that matters. Like, like like if they're doing those things,
Yeah.
it honestly, they probably don't matter anyway. So,
Yeah.
so I think like that is something for me that I had to walk through over, my like mid 20s to like where I'm at now. And I think like I've made massive leaps and bounds on that to just like following my own path and going after what's important to me without being apologetic around it. But it's definitely a journey and a season. And I think like in my early 20s, I definitely was not like that. I was much more of like a crowd follower, much more of just like, I'm going to do these things because it's what's expected of me. And it's so much more freeing to be on the other side of that and just be like, I am living the life that I want to live. And that is so much more freeing and empowering place to be. So that would be another one that I would say.
Yeah, I like that one. My second one was focusing on skills, developing skills that you need for whatever it is you're trying to achieve, and not so much like measuring based on time spent. Ultimately, time spent doesn't really matter if you don't develop the skills of what you require anyways. So and this goes back to my first point a little bit, like if you think in a 10-year time frame, and if I can develop these skills that I need to be successful in a 10-year time frame, by the time I'm 35 and I have those skills, I should be seeing, reasonable success on that if I've developed the skills. Oftentimes in your mid 20s or early 20s, it's really hard to look that far out because, you're trying to like prove to people that you're some successful adult, and you don't really know very much at that time in your life. And, you still want to have the results of successful people, whatever that might mean to you, but you don't have the same skill set that they do. You haven't, been through the experiences that they've been through. And so if I could go back and tell myself, hey, if this is what you're going to pursue, what are the skills that you need? And just focus on those and developing those over time. Like, think at least 5 years, and then, go from there. And if you can develop those skills successfully, there's a very little chance you're not going to have some success in whatever it is you're doing. So taking that, it's more of like a perspective shift, a mindset shift, I guess, than anything, where don't think about just getting to the end goal. I know I thought a lot about that early on, and and pursuing stuff in that state of mind is scary because you're like, wow, that's such a big, how am I ever going to get there? I'm going from where I am today to this like fictitious successful place in the future, and there's a massive gap in which I have no idea what to do in that gap. Well, I wish I would have thought more about that gap and what's required in that gap, skill development wise, in order to get where it is I wanted to go.
Yeah.
So that's go ahead.
I was just going to say that actually really applies even to me and like the line of work that I'm in, the industry I'm in. Like so much of what I do isn't about what I do. It's about the skills that I've acquired over the last 5 to be successful. Like I truly believe in that as well. Like you can come into an industry with absolutely no skills and you don't realize that it's the skills that are actually making you successful, not just doing more, like it's really honing in on skills that translate into something. Then I'm just going to work hard. I'm going to do more. I'm going to achieve more. It's like, no. Like there has to be some sort of skill set behind that. And so when you can focus on that, that's where you're going to start to make waves. I totally agree with
that. What's your third one?
Oh, did I have to have a third one? I thought you said 2.
Oh, well, I have a third one. So.
Of course you do.
Okay.
Oh
do you have one? If you have one on the top of your head, fire away. But if you don't, then I'll say a third one here.
Okay, you go. If I come up with one, if I can think of one, I'll let you know.
This is in line with one of the points you made. I definitely would tell myself this as a 20, 25-year-old. I'll refer to myself as a 20, 25-year-old kid back then.
Yeah.
But I would tell myself, don't care so much about what other people think or care. Like, don't care about where you're going. Like, don't care so much about their opinion about what it is you want to try to do or achieve. Because the odds are those people probably don't want the same thing. And so they're probably not going to guide you in a way that's beneficial to your place. So this is kind of like, I would say, like the gasoline on my whole advice to the 20-year-old Aaron, which is you need to develop the ability to just sort of tune out, like almost unemotionally tune out a lot of what people think. There are some people who in the area that you're pursuing, or someone you might really, really, really trust that has what your best interests are in going forward and whatever it is you're trying to pursue. You should care about what those people think, or if they're trying to help you, like a mentor or something. The large majority of other people, you shouldn't care what they think. You shouldn't care about what they think about what you're doing, and you shouldn't care about what they think about where you're going if it's important to you. So that is piece one for me and I'll go back to the other 2 points I made. If I'm telling myself, how to get where I want to go, that's point one. Point two is that I would have told myself to develop skills. So don't care about what people think or say or where you're going. Develop the skills necessary to get to where you want to go. And then the third one is, in that period of developing yourself, you should bet on yourself as much as you possibly can, whether that's with education, whether that's paying for someone to teach you skills, whatever it is. So those are the 3 things that I had, and they're all a little bit different elements in getting to where you want to go. And I think I would say this fairly confidently that, any 20, 25-year-old kid has somewhere they want to go, and they likely don't know how to get there and don't know what to do, but they want to go somewhere. And so that would have been, I would have classified myself as that as well. That would be my advice to, a 20-year-old Aaron, those 3 things.
I don't have a third one.
Don't have a third one. Okay. Well,
Not that I can think of, but
let you off the hook.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Okay. Well, that's all the questions. Do you have any other comments that you want to make, or?
No, I don't
points?
think so. But I will just say, like, if you are someone who's listening to this and you are in your 20s, or you're, you're early to mid 20s, just take it from a couple old folks who have been there and done it. And I think, like, there's so much. I'm sure there's way more. Like, if I were to actually, like, have allowed myself to think of 3 things, I'm sure there's so many more things that I could come up with. But I just
I'll give you a third one. I'll give you a third one.
And then you want me to speak on it?
No, if you want to, you can. But I'll give you a third one because I think you'll agree with it.
Well, I've agreed with all of the ones that you said, but
you have to be open for where life could take you. You can't be so tunnel visioned on thinking that you know where you're going to go and where your life is going to go because you're 22 or you're 25 and you're not open to anything outside this tunnel because this is where you're going. You can't think like that. You have to be open to, this may go somewhere that I don't know, and I got to be open to at least exploring that and meeting people who might be down that avenue, or opportunities that come my way down that avenue. Because I mean, just look at both of us. We both went to school, and neither of us use anything to do with that schooling anymore.
No, we don't.
And I would say that we're both very open people now towards change. Like, what might come from, this position down here, and we're not so tunnel visioned in where things are going to go for us. We're open to what comes our way and just trying to take advantage of opportunities. And so that's my third one for you.
Yeah. And not being so closed off to different ideas as well. Like, being open-minded, like you said, and also just understanding, like, this goes back to kind of the first one I said, but, like, it's okay to change your mind. Like, it's okay to learn new information and then decide you want something different, instead of saying, so, like, in your box, the way that you think is so in the box. it's okay
Yeah.
to be like, okay, you know what? I'm actually open to hearing about this. Let's listen to it. Okay, this actually sounds good. How do I implement this? Instead of just being like, no, 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 this is like so far off of what I'm used to. So there's no way that I even want to hear about it because I could never, ever, ever consider it. Like, I think that had we done that in areas of our life, like we wouldn't be in the position that we're in right now. So I'm
No.
so grateful for past us who just went kind of like, okay, well, what's the harm in like hearing about something, or what's the harm in
Yeah.
learning about it, or what's the harm in doing the research to see if this is the right move for us? Like, what's the harm, right? I think just being so open-minded and being aware that like changing your mind is totally okay, even if it means that you're doing something a little different or off the grain of like what normal society is doing. Like, again, it's like trusting yourself, right? Like betting on yourself. Like it all kind of interrelates because it's like you open up your mind, then you trust yourself, you stop listening to what other people think, you stop believing in their vision for your life, and you go after your own. Like it all is kind of intertwined. But I
Yeah.
think, yeah, it's just being open to it all is, and just knowing that the one way you thought you might see it going, like it's okay if it goes a different way.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's a good one, Asia. Thanks for bringing that up.
Thanks for prompting me.
Okay. Yeah, my final thought before we wrap this one up is just that I really liked doing this. I really liked the questions that people had asked, and we picked
Yeah.
5 this time. But if you have a question, yeah, just shoot it over. We like to answer people's questions. We like to engage with people who are listening. So
Yeah.
if that's you and you have a question, just shoot us over, and we'll put it on our list. And the next time we do another Q&A version of the podcast, we will try to answer your questions. So I had a good time. It also is very prompting between the two of us to come up with answers and hear each other's perspective on some questions maybe we haven't asked each other. So
yeah, like we didn't
I
go like
enjoyed it.
we knew what questions were going to be asked, but we didn't consult with one another. I'm like, what are you going to say? What am I going to say? Like we didn't really know. So it's kind of fun for us too, because then I'll be like, oh yeah, okay, that's so it's good that way.
It is. Okay. Yeah, that's it for this week. Hope everyone has a good week, and we will see you next week.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.